First Contact's desperate call. The message arrived at Earth's Deep Space Listening Array during the graveyard shift. Dr. Sarah Chen was halfway through her third cup of coffee when the quantum receivers began picking up something unlike anything she'd ever seen before. The signal wasn't using any known protocol, yet somehow it was perfectly translating itself into every human language simultaneously. To the warriors of Earth, the message began, "We are the collective of the seventh star. Our civilization faces extinction at the hands of the void harvesters, and we need your help. Not your technology, not your resources. We need your obsolete weapons." Sarah nearly spilled her coffee. The collective was one of the most advanced civilizations known to Earth. They'd made that clear during their brief first contact 50 years ago. Their ships could traverse galaxies in days, their energy weapons could reduce planets to ash, and their defensive shields were thought to be impenetrable. Why would they need Earth's obsolete weapons? The message continued, accompanied by technical specifications that made Sarah's eyes widen. The Void Harvesters had developed a way to turn the collective's advanced technology against them. Every energy weapon they fired was absorbed and redirected. Every shield they raised became a prison. Every quantum computer they deployed was corrupted. They were dying by their own technological superiority. Within hours, the United Earth Defense Council convened an emergency session. Admiral Helena Martinez, her silver hair tied back in a severe bun, stood before the assembled leaders. The collective's message included coordinates for their remaining settlements and technical data on the Void Harvesters. "We've confirmed both their identity and the threat they're facing. And they want our junk." Counselor Zhang asked, his hologram flickering slightly. "Our mothballed ships and kinetic weapons." "Not junk, Counselor," Martins corrected. "They want the Titan-class battleships we retired 20 years ago. The ones that still use railguns, tactical nuclear warheads, and good old-fashioned armor plating. They want the ships we built before we started copying alien technology." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. Earth had spent the last 5 decades trying to catch up to the galactic community, retiring their primitive weapons in favor of energy-based systems. Now those same primitive weapons might be the key to saving one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. President Diana Wells sat at the head of the council table, her dark eyes scanning the room. "Admiral Martinez, what exactly are we looking at in terms of available hardware?" Martinez pulled up a holographic inventory. "We have 12 Titan-class battleships in various stages of decommissioning. The U.S. Thermopylae, Masada, and Normandy are the most intact. We've also got about 30 Ranger-class destroyers and a handful of support vessels. All of them use 20th and early 21st century principles: kinetic weapons, chemical propulsion, and analog backup systems. Those ships are museums," Counselor Patel interjected. "We'd be sending our people to die in antiques." "With respect, Counselor," a new voice cut through the chamber. Captain James Chen, formerly of the Thermopylae, stepped forward. His weathered face bore the scars of battles fought before energy shields became standard issue. Those antiques were built to take hits and keep fighting. Modern ships are marvels of technology, but they're fragile. One shield failure, and they're done. The old girls, they're built like tanks. The room fell silent as tactical projections filled the air. The Void Harvester's ships appeared as ghostly purple outlines, sleek, deadly, and virtually untouchable by energy weapons. Alongside them, the bulky shapes of Earth's retired fleet looked like relics from a forgotten age. "Look here," Martins highlighted a section of the Harvester's technical data. "Their adaptive defense systems are calibrated for energy weapons, quantum attacks, and gravitic distortions, but they have minimal protection against kinetic impacts. They've evolved beyond the need for heavy armor because nobody uses physical weapons anymore." President Wells stood, her decision visible in her stance before she spoke. "How long to get the old fleet spaceworthy?" 3 weeks minimum, Chen replied. "We'll need to recall retired crews. The younger generation never learned how to operate analog systems or calculate manual firing solutions. 2 problems. Counselor Zhang raised his hand. First, the collective is 5,000 light-years away. Our old ships don't have FTL capabilities anywhere near that range. Second, even if we get there, we're talking about 14 ships against a force that's overwhelming one of the most powerful civilizations in known space. Admiral Martinez smiled. The collective provided us with coordinates for their quantum gate network. They'll get us there. As for being outnumbered, she looked at Captain Chen, who nodded. Sometimes the best sword is the one your enemy has forgotten how to defend against, Chen said quietly. They won't be expecting ships that can fight blind, without computers. They won't be ready for tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds, or tactical nukes wrapped in Faraday cages. They certainly won't expect crews trained to fight with mechanical backups when every electronic system goes dark. President Wells took one last look at the projected casualty estimates, then straightened her jacket. Get it done. But I want volunteers only. Make sure everyone knows exactly what they're signing up for. The next 3 weeks transformed Earth's orbital shipyards into a hive of activity. The Thermopyla's massive hull emerged from its museum docking, scaffolding surrounding it as crews worked around the clock. Inside, Captain Chen walked through corridors he thought he'd never see again, running his hand along walls that had saved his life more than once. In the main gunnery station, Chief Gloria Ramirez was teaching a group of young engineers how to operate the manual targeting systems. Forget everything you know about quantum targeting, she barked. These babies work on springs, gears, and good old-fashioned trigonometry. No computer for the enemy to hack, no energy signature to detect. Down in engineering, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the captain, was overseeing the installation of modified Faraday shielding around critical systems. Her coffee addiction hadn't improved since receiving the first message, but her eyes sparkled with the challenge of adapting old technology to counter new threats. The beauty of it, she explained to her team, is that we're not trying to match their technology. We're going completely analog where possible, hardened electronics where necessary. They can't hack what isn't there to hack. The crew that assembled was a mix of veterans pulled from retirement and young officers eager to prove themselves. Many had never served together, coming from different eras of Earth's Space Force, but they shared a common understanding. They were about to attempt something that went against every modern doctrine of space warfare. Captain Chen stood on his bridge, watching as the rest of the fleet took formation. The ships looked like something from an old video game compared to the sleek modern vessels patrolling Earth's borders, but there was a brutal functionality to their design that had stood the test of time. All ships report ready, Captain, is XO, Commander Yuki Tanaka, reported. She'd served on one of the last active Titan-class ships before their decommissioning and had jumped at the chance to return. Very well. Chen nodded. Signal the collective. Time to show the galaxy why humans keep spare parts around. The quantum gate opened before them, a swirling vortex of possibilities. One by one, Earth's obsolete fleet entered the portal, carrying with them humanity's answer to a cry for help. Sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Operation Patchwork. The quantum gate deposited Earth's fleet in a system that bore the scars of recent battle. Debris fields stretched across space where planets should have been, and the distant star cast an eerie light through clouds of metallic dust, all that remained of the collective's once mighty defense platforms. Multiple contacts, announced Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. She was using modern equipment grafted onto the Thermopyla's old systems, but kept the gain low to minimize their signature. Collective ships at bearing 047, range 12 million kilometers. Void harvester vessels pursuing. Captain Chen studied the tactical display. The collective ships, 3 of them, were running dark, their once powerful engines reduced to minimal output. Behind them, 5 harvester vessels moved with the confidence of apex predators, their hull configurations shifting like liquid metal as they adjusted to their prey's desperate evasive maneuvers. "Open a channel to the collective vessels," Chen ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." The response was immediate. A hologram materialized on the bridge, showing a being that seemed to be made of crystalline structures and flowing energy. Its voice resonated directly in their minds. "Earth vessels, you risk much by coming here. The harvesters have adapted to all known forms off." The being paused, its crystalline structure flickering in what might have been surprise. "Your ships, they are not like the others." "That's the idea," Chen replied. "We brought what you asked for. Now, if you'll transmit the tactical data you've gathered on harvester response patterns, we can." "Enemy vessels adjusting course," Park interrupted. "They're moving to engage." The harvester ships accelerated, their liquid metal hulls flowing into attack configurations. Energy weapons began charging, creating distortions in space itself. "All ships, execute Operation Patchwork," Chen commanded. Across the human fleet, crews sprang into action, implementing strategies that would have been considered insane by modern military standards. The first harvester volley was a thing of terrible beauty, streams of coherent energy that could core a planet, accompanied by quantum-entangled warheads designed to bypass any known shielding. They struck the human fleet and found nothing vital to destroy. The Thermopylae and her sisters had been retrofitted with a patchwork of materials and systems that deliberately created dead zones in their detection. Where modern ships presented clear power signatures and shield harmonics, the human vessels were a chaos of hot spots, cold spots, and electromagnetic dead zones. The few energy weapons that hit caused damage, but the old ship's compartmentalized design and thick armor absorbed the impacts. "They're trying to hack our targeting systems," Dr. Chen reported from engineering, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Having trouble with the fact that our main guns are aimed by mechanical computers." Speaking of which, Chen turned to his gunnery officer. "Time to show them why we brought the big guns. All ships, commence firing pattern Alpha." The human fleet's response wasn't the elegant dance of energy weapons that dominated modern space combat. It was a storm of tungsten rods accelerated to relativistic speeds, clouds of smart mines that used no electronics once deployed, and missiles wrapped in materials that made them nearly invisible to advanced sensors. The first salvos caught the harvesters completely off guard. Their adaptive shields, designed to handle energy weapons and quantum attacks, struggled to cope with simple kinetic impacts. One destroyer took a direct hit from a railgun round, the sheer momentum of the impact cracking its liquid metal hull before its systems could compensate. "They're adapting," Park reported. "Hull configurations changing to deal with kinetic impacts." As expected, Chen nodded. "Time for Phase 2. All ships, implement ODIN protocols." ODIN, Orchestrated Disruption Through Infrastructure Negation, was the brainchild of Dr. Chen and her engineering team. As the harvester ships reconfigured to deal with physical attacks, the human fleet launched its next surprise. Clouds of specialized chaff, each particle containing a minimal AI program designed to last only microseconds before burning out. The programs were too simple to be corrupted by harvester systems, but in their brief moments of existence, they achieved their purpose. The chaff cloud reached the nearest harvester vessel just as it finished adapting to kinetic attacks. Millions of minimal programs activated and died in a cascade, each one attempting to connect to the harvester's systems. The alien vessel's adaptive technology tried to respond to every connection attempt, its liquid metal hull rippling as it rapidly reconfigured to address each perceived threat. "Target locked," the gunnery officer reported. "Their shield harmonics are fluctuating as they try to adapt." "Fire everything," Chen ordered. The human fleet's savage barrage caught the harvester ship mid-configuration. Railgun rounds punched through temporarily thinned armor, conventional missiles slipped through gaps in shifting shields, and nuclear devices, detonated in carefully calculated patterns that disrupted the vessel's ability to maintain its form. For the first time in recorded history, a harvester ship died. The remaining harvesters immediately began to withdraw, their liquid metal hulls flowing into configurations that favored speed over offense. They had encountered something new, an enemy that didn't play by the established rules of modern combat. "Should we pursue?" Commander Tanaka asked. Chen shook his head. "Not yet. First, we need to secure the collective vessels and get a full download of everything they know about harvester tactics. Then we start planning the next phase." As rescue operations began, Chen couldn't help but smile at the irony. Humanity had spent decades trying to catch up to the galactic community's level of technology. Now their salvation might lie in remembering how to fight without it. The Broken Shield Gambit. The collective's emergency command center was a crystalline structure suspended in space, its architecture as alien as its inhabitants. Captain Chen stood before a council of beings made of light and energy, his old-fashioned uniform a stark contrast to their ethereal forms. The tactical display between them showed the movements of harvester fleets throughout the sector. Their regrouping, the collective's strategic mind, a consciousness that called itself Nexus, observed. Your victory, while impressive, has caused them to adjust their patterns. They will not underestimate primitive weapons again. Good, Chen replied, surprising the assembled beings. That's exactly what we're counting on. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her tablet displaying complex simulations. The harvester's greatest strength is their ability to adapt, but it's also their weakness. They're like an immune system. They develop specific responses to known threats. We're going to use that against them. The display shifted, showing the battle plan that Earth's fleet had developed. It was unlike anything the collective had seen in millennia of warfare, a strategy that embraced chaos and unpredictability as core principles. We call it the Broken Shield Gambit, Captain Chen explained. Each time they adapt to one of our weapons, they have to maintain that adaptation. Their computational capacity isn't infinite. If we force them to adapt to enough different threats simultaneously, their systems will reach a critical threshold. Nexus finished, its crystalline form pulsing with understanding. But our simulations suggest you would need at least 30 different weapon systems to achieve such an overload. Your fleet carries perhaps 10. Commander Tanaka smiled. That's where you come in. We don't need your advanced weapons. We need your manufacturing capabilities. Human history is full of weapons that never made it past the prototype stage. Things that were too impractical, too expensive, or too bizarre for mass production. But each one works on different principles. The next hour was spent reviewing Earth's military archives. The collective's representatives watched in growing amazement as humans presented weapons that their civilizations had discarded eons ago as too primitive or impractical. Gravity-assisted kinetic bombardment systems, magnetohydrodynamic explosives, even updated versions of Greek fire designed for space warfare. These are not elegant solutions, one of the collective's members observed. That's the point, Dr. Chen responded. Elegance is predictable. We need weapons that make no logical sense, that follow no discernible pattern. The harvesters expect efficiency. We'll give them chaos. Over the next few days, the collective's automated factories worked at full capacity, producing weapons that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for thousands of years. Each human ship was modified to carry a different combination of systems, ensuring no two vessels would present the same threat profile. Meanwhile, the harvester fleet had grown. Long-range sensors detected over 40 ships approaching, their liquid metal hulls configured for maximum defensive capability. They had learned from their first defeat and were taking no chances. Captain Chen stood on the Thermopyla's bridge, watching as the last modifications were completed. His fleet now looked even more patchwork than before, with odd protrusions and ancient weapons grafted onto hull plates that were already a mix of old and new technology. All ships reporting ready, Commander Tanaka announced, though engineering says they've never seen power curves quite like these before. Nobody has, Chen replied. That's rather the point. Signal the fleet. Operation Broken Shield is a go. The human fleet moved to engage the harvesters, but not as a unified formation. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random patterns, each ship operating independently. To the harvesters' advanced tactical systems, it must have looked like madness. The first exchange of fire proved otherwise. The Thermopylae opened with a barrage of railgun fire, similar to their previous encounter. The harvesters adapted instantly, their hulls flowing into configurations designed to deflect kinetic impacts. That's when the destroyer Normandy struck, using a weapon based on forgotten Soviet research, a plasma acoustic hybrid that created devastating resonance patterns in metallic structures. As the harvesters rushed to adapt to this new threat, the Masada deployed its own surprise. Swarms of microscopic machines that operated on purely mechanical principles, too simple to be hacked but programmed to seek out and disrupt the molecular bonds in liquid metal. Multiple harvester ships showing signs of system strain, Park reported from her sensor station. Their adaptation protocols are conflicting with each other. The battle that followed would be studied in war colleges for centuries to come. Each human ship presented a different threat, forcing the harvesters to maintain an ever-growing list of defensive adaptations. When they finally began to adapt to the overall strategy, the humans simply switched weapons between ships, creating new combinations that required fresh adaptations. Energy spike. Park's warning came just as the nearest harvester vessel seemed to lose cohesion, its liquid metal hull flowing in random patterns as its systems tried to maintain too many defensive configurations simultaneously. All ships, execute Protocol Omega, Chen ordered. Hit them with everything we've got. The human fleet's final barrage was a symphony of destruction that defied categorization. Modern energy weapons fired alongside ancient ballistics. Experimental weapons that had never seen mass production unleashed their potential after decades in storage. Ships that looked like they belonged in museums delivered strikes that overwhelmed defenses designed to counter the most advanced technology in the galaxy. When it was over, the space around them was filled with rapidly cooling clouds of liquid metal, all that remained of the harvester fleet. The few enemy vessels that survived retreated, their adaptive capabilities seemingly overwhelmed by the need to account for too many different threats. Status report, Chen called out, watching as damage control teams rushed to address the Thermopylae's wounds. 5 ships heavily damaged, 3 with moderate damage. No losses. Tanaka's voice carried a note of disbelief. Sir, the collective is hailing us. They're detecting multiple harvester fleets changing course. They're withdrawing from collective space entirely. Chen nodded slowly. Send word to Earth. Tell them Operation Broken Shield was a success, but we'll need more ships. Something tells me the harvesters will be back, and next time they'll have tried to adapt to our adaptations. You think they'll figure out countermeasures? Tanaka asked. Eventually. But that's the beauty of using old and unpredictable weapons. We got thousands of years of human military history to draw from, and each new combination forces them to start adapting all over again. As the fleet regrouped for repairs, Chen couldn't help but reflect on the irony. Humanity had spent so long trying to catch up to the galaxy's technological level that they'd almost forgotten their greatest strength: the ability to find unexpected solutions, to make the impractical practical when necessary, and to never stop innovating, even if that innovation meant looking backward to move forward. Symphony of Steel. The news of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. Species that had dismissed Earth as a backwater now sent observers to study their methods. The collective's quantum channels buzzed with analysis of the battle footage as advanced civilizations tried to understand how primitive technology had succeeded where their most sophisticated weapons had failed. But in the command center of the newly established Earth Collective Joint Defense Station, Captain Chen was focused on a more immediate concern. The tactical display showed hundreds of harvester signatures moving through adjacent sectors, their patterns suggesting something ominous. They're not just retreating, Dr. Chen observed. her usual coffee cup replaced by something that glowed with collective energy stimulants. They're gathering, combining their computational resources. Nexus's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. Our long-range sensors detect extensive modifications to their fleet structure. They appear to be implementing distributed processing networks, allowing multiple vessels to share adaptive capabilities. They're trying to overcome their individual limitations, Commander Tanaka concluded. One ship might not be able to maintain enough adaptations, but a networked fleet could theoretically adapt to everything we throw at them. Chen finished. How long until they reach their assembly point? 4 days, Park reported from her upgraded sensor station. Maybe 5 if the collective's disruption fields hold. Chen turned to the holographic representatives from Earth's Defense Council. We need more ships. Not just the old ones this time. Everything we've got. And I need every weapons research project that never made it past the drawing board. Especially the ones that were rejected for being too unconventional. President Wells nodded. Already done. We've opened the Black Project archives. Some of this stuff. Let's just say there's a reason we kept it classified. Not because it was too advanced, but because it was too unpredictable. Dr. Chen, your engineering team will have full access. The next 4 days transformed the space around the Joint Defense Station into something that would have made Salvador Dali question his grip on reality. The original fleet of restored museum pieces was joined by ships of every era and design philosophy in human history. Modern vessels had their energy weapons stripped out, replaced with hybrid systems that combined old and new principles in ways their designers had never imagined. In the station's massive fabrication bays, the collective's advanced manufacturing capabilities were pushed to their limits, producing weapons that had previously existed only in the fever dreams of Earth's most eccentric military scientists. Dr. Chen led a team of human and collective engineers in an effort that seemed to violate several laws of physics. The beauty of it, she explained to a group of crystalline collective engineers, is that we're not trying to make anything work perfectly. We want weapons that are almost as surprising to us as they are to the enemy. Controlled chaos is still chaos. The collective engineers struggled with this concept. Their civilization had spent millennia perfecting their technology, refining it to peak efficiency. The idea of deliberately introducing elements of uncertainty went against everything they believed in. But they couldn't argue with the results. When the Harvester fleet finally arrived, it was massive. Over 300 ships moving in perfect synchronization, their liquid metal hulls linked by streams of quantum data. Their adaptive capabilities were now shared across the entire fleet, allowing them to maintain defenses against every weapon humanity had previously used. They found themselves facing something entirely different. The combined Earth collective fleet was a nightmare of engineering. Ships that looked like they'd been assembled from spare parts carried weapons that shouldn't have existed. Modern hulls bristled with ancient ballistics modified by alien technology. Vessels that had once been the pride of Earth's fleet now sported improvised weapons that their designers would have declared impossible. All ships, execute Symphony Protocol, Chen ordered from the Thermopyla's bridge. Random pattern selection, full spectrum engagement. What followed was either the most brilliant or most insane battle in human military history, depending on who you asked. Each human ship activated a different combination of weapons, selected by quantum randomizers to ensure even their own crews couldn't predict what they would do next. The Harvester fleet's networked adaptive systems tried to respond, but the sheer variety of threats overwhelmed their ability to process responses. They faced weapons that combined principles in ways that defied logical analysis. Railguns firing shells filled with quantum-entangled particles that spread collective energy disruption fields on impact. Ancient Russian nuclear torpedo designs modified to create temporary holes in spacetem. Mechanical computers controlling swarms of nanomachines that operated on principles too simple to hack, but too numerous to stop. Gravity weapons reverse-engineered from black box technology found in Earth's deepest research vaults. Computing systems that ran on deliberate glitches, producing results that were mathematically impossible to predict. The Harvester's networked intelligence tried to analyze and adapt to each new threat, but the random combinations and constant switching of tactics created a cascade of conflicts in their response protocols. Ships that adapted to one attack found their defenses worse than useless against the next. "Their network is showing signs of strain," Park reported, her voice tense with excitement. "The distributed processing is starting to fragment." "Now," Chen ordered, "all ships, execute final movement." Every ship in the human fleet activated every weapon system simultaneously, creating a symphony of destruction that overwhelmed the Harvester's ability to process defensive responses. Their networked intelligence, trying to adapt to thousands of different threats at once, suffered the technological equivalent of a nervous breakdown. The liquid metal hulls of the Harvester ships began to ripple and distort, their adaptive systems caught in feedback loops as they tried to maintain contradictory configurations. Ships that had seemed invincible mere moments before began to break apart, their sophisticated technology unable to cope with the sheer chaos of human warfare. The battle ended not with a dramatic final explosion, but with the Harvester fleet literally falling apart, their liquid metal hulls solidifying into random shapes as their adaptive systems crashed. The few ships that maintained enough coherence to flee did so, their retreat more closely resembling a rout than a tactical withdrawal. In the aftermath, as damage control teams worked to address the inevitable consequences of using experimental weapons in combat, Chen received a message from the collective's strategic mind. "We have analyzed your tactics," Nexus communicated, its crystalline form showing signs of what might have been agitation. "They should not have worked. The mathematical probabilities of success were infinitesimal." "That's humanity's secret weapon," Chen replied with a tired smile. "We don't always believe in mathematical probabilities. Sometimes the best solution is the one that's too improbable for the enemy to predict." As the fleet regrouped and began planning for the inevitable counterattack, Chen couldn't help but wonder what this victory would mean for humanity's place in the galaxy. They had proven that sometimes the most primitive solution was the most effective, that unpredictability could overcome superior technology, and that there was still a place for the classic human traits of innovation, adaptability, and barely controlled chaos in an age of technological perfection. Legacy of the obsolete. 6 months after the Battle of Broken Symphony, as historians were already calling it, Captain Chen stood in Earth's orbital shipyards, watching as workers installed a peculiar hybrid of ancient and modern technology on a brand new vessel. The ship was part of the galaxy's first human collective joint production line, combining Earth's unpredictable design philosophy with the collective's advanced manufacturing capabilities. "Still getting used to seeing our old tech treated like treasure," Commander Tanaka remarked, joining him at the observation window. She'd been promoted after the battle but chose to remain as his XO, claiming that someone needed to keep him from trying anything too crazy. "The galaxy's changing," Chen replied. "Look there." Below them, a group of crystalline collective engineers was engaged in what appeared to be a heated debate with human technicians over the installation of a manually operated targeting system. The collective beings had initially been horrified by the idea of trusting combat calculations to mechanical computers, but recent events have forced them to reconsider many of their long-held assumptions. Dr. Chen's voice came over their comm units. "Captain, you're needed in the strategy room. The Galactic Council is about to begin their session." The Galactic Council chamber was a marvel of holographic technology, allowing representatives from dozens of civilizations to meet as if they were in the same room. Chen found himself standing before beings of energy, crystalline entities, and forms of life he still had trouble comprehending. Earth had been granted a seat after the Harvester War, though many still seemed uncertain about this young species that had turned military doctrine on its head. "The defense proposals have been reviewed," the council speaker, a being of pure energy, announced. "We now recognize Representative Chen of Earth." Chen stepped forward, activating the holographic display. "Thank you, Speaker. As we've seen, the Harvester's greatest strength, their adaptive technology, can become a weakness when faced with enough variety and unpredictability. Earth proposes a new approach to galactic defense. The display showed vessels of various designs, each incorporating elements that would have been considered obsolete by most advanced civilizations. We call it the Asymmetric Defense Initiative. Instead of pursuing ever more advanced technology, we create deliberate technological gaps in our defense systems. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic is different, making it impossible for adaptive enemies to form a coherent response. You propose we deliberately use inferior technology. A crystalline being asked, its tone suggesting it found the idea disturbing. We propose using all technology, Chen corrected. New and old, simple and advanced, predictable and chaotic. The harvesters taught us that monocultural advancement has weaknesses. In trying to perfect our technology, we've made it predictable. Dr. Chen, who had been quietly working on her tablet, added, "Our research shows that the harvester's adaptive capabilities are based on pattern recognition. By introducing deliberate irregularities and technological anachronisms, we create defense systems that are inherently resistant to adaptation." The council chamber erupted in discussion. The idea challenged thousands of years of technological development philosophy, yet the results couldn't be denied. Humanity's primitive approach had succeeded where the most advanced weapons had failed. President Wells, attending via hologram, addressed the council. Earth doesn't ask you to abandon your advanced technology. We ask you to consider that progress doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means remembering what we've left behind. As the council debated, Chen received a private message from Nexus. The collective strategic mind had been analyzing battle data for months, trying to understand how humanity's chaotic tactics had achieved what should have been mathematically impossible. "We have been studying your historical records," Nexus communicated. "Your species' tendency to preserve and repurpose old technology, which we once saw as a sign of backwardness, appears to be an evolutionary advantage. You never know when an obsolete solution might be the perfect answer to a new problem." Chen smiled. "That's the real legacy of the obsolete fleet. Not just proving that old technology can still be effective, but showing that true advancement comes from embracing diversity. In technology, in tactics, in thinking itself." The Council's decision was unprecedented. Earth would lead a new division of the Galactic Defense Force, specializing in asymmetric warfare and technological hybridization. The production lines that had once created museum pieces would now produce a new generation of warships that deliberately incorporated elements from every era of human military history. Back on the Thermopylae, now permanently restored and designated as a training vessel, Chen watched as a class of alien cadets struggle to understand the principles of mechanical backup systems and analog targeting computers. Among them were even a few collective beings, their crystalline forms hovering over consoles designed for human hands as they learned that sometimes the most primitive solution was the most elegant. "Ironic, isn't it?" Dr. Chen said, joining him on the bridge. She'd been appointed head of the new hybrid technology division, though she still insisted on doing hands-on engineering work. "We spent so long trying to catch up to everyone else's technology, only to find out our outdated methods were exactly what the galaxy needed." "Not outdated," Chen corrected. "Battle-tested. There's a difference between old and obsolete, something the harvesters learned the hard way." As if to emphasize his point, a training squadron of new hybrid vessels passed by the viewport. Their hulls combined the sleek lines of modern ships with the robust armor of older designs. Ancient railguns sat alongside quantum weaponry, each system backing up the other. They were ships that defied conventional military doctrine, embodying humanity's gift to the galaxy, the understanding that true strength comes not from pursuing perfection, but from embracing imperfection, unpredictability, and the chaos that makes adaptation possible. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere out there, the surviving harvesters were probably still trying to figure out how they'd been defeated by weapons that belonged in museums. Sometimes, Chen thought, that was the greatest victory of all. Not just winning the battle, but changing the way everyone thought about warfare itself. As the Thermopyla's old engines hummed beneath his feet, Chen realized that humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than advanced technology. They'd given them a new way of thinking, a reminder that progress wasn't always a straight line forward. Sometimes the best way to advance was to remember where you came from, and to never underestimate the value of keeping a few old tricks up your sleeve.